Survivor Series with Mike Niederreiter. I had to Google how to pronounce Niederreiter because I was way off and it would have been really bad. But we're going to read a little bit of this for you. This is an example of a written blog. August 29th, 2023. We're only talking a few months ago, kind of similar to Tony. I'm going to read this the way it's written. So this is coming from Mike. I jumped into my rental car and headed out from central Pennsylvania to a project site about 5 hours north in upstate New York for a client meeting the following day. As planned, a group of us, including work colleagues and representatives from the client team, met at the site the next morning at around 8:30 or around 8 a.m. to walk the property and set the stage for a late morning meeting at a local hotel conference room. The site walk went well, and I felt fine. In fact, I texted my wife, Kim, around 9:30 a.m. to check in and let her know that everything was good. Shortly after 10 a.m., we met back at the hotel as planned to go through a presentation that we had prepared for the next phase of this project. There were probably around 20 of us sitting around a U-shaped table arrangement, running through a PowerPoint presentation and discussing the various aspects of the project. At some point during the early part of the presentation, I began to have some unusual tightness and subtle pain in my chest and generally started to feel uncomfortable. Up until that point, I felt fine, certainly nothing unusual. There was no warning or any symptom that I recall indicating there was any sort of issue. As time passed, the tightness in my chest got worse and my right leg began feeling numb. The numbness in my leg was not necessarily unusual, owing to some lower back issues I previously had addressed through surgery about 1.5 years prior to this event. My solution was simply to shift my position on the conference room chair, which ultimately did nothing to relieve the discomfort, but at the time it made sense. At that point, all kinds of thoughts were running through my head. Was I having a heart attack or a stroke, or was this some high level bout of stress-induced anxiety associated with some project challenges? In any event, I continued to keep it all to myself in consideration of the meeting environment and not wanting to cause a fuss over something that I could not explain and assumed it would eventually pass. Went on for about 20 or 30 minutes, and let's just say, suffice it to say, it did not pass. So you'll need to read the rest of the story to find out everything juicy that happened to Mike. Interesting story. As I mentioned before, there's always a lot to learn, always a lot to compare in symptoms, because I think one of the misnomers with dissections especially is that you're going to be in this hellacious pain. You're going to feel like your body's being ripped open. Yeah, there's plenty of people that say they feel like they're being ripped in two, but there's also plenty of people that just don't necessarily feel great, and they know it's a feeling they've not for sure felt before. But so you might feel like you have acid reflux, but it's a different kind of acid reflux. You might feel you have pain in your leg, but it's a different pain in your leg. And so it's weird. It's like the brain knows something's very off, but I don't know for sure what's off because it doesn't seem horrible, but it's not normal, if that makes any sense. And so either it's going to be really, really bad, or it's not going to be super bad, but you just know something's not right. And blood pressure might not even indicate that there's anything wrong. You might not even have high blood pressure. It could be 138, 140. So that's not a great indicator that something's really wrong. So it's hard to tell people you'll know when you know, because you might not know, but you just know something's off, right? And if you know you have an aneurysm, those are one of those times where, hey, you know what, in about 15 minutes or so, or whatever you've discussed with your doctor, if things aren't changing, you might want to consider making sure that everything's all right. There's never anything wrong with making sure everything's all right. But in Mike's case, you really want to read what he has to say here. It's pretty interesting stuff. And again, we would love to have a story from you. So feel free to click the link, Tony, and get us your survivor story, or be featured here live or in a pre-recorded message. That's our survivor stories.